Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, my friends. Today we'll be looking at one of the most interesting topics, the age of exploration. So, what is the age of exploration? The age of exploration is basically a period in European history when European sailors, or explorers rather, began exploring the world by sea. Let's have a quick look at the timeline before we dive right in. So, first we have the Middle Ages, or the fall of the Roman Empire. This was a time when the Black Plague took place. Following this, we had the Age of Exploration or Renaissance. This was when thinkers began leaving mythological thinking and adopting logical thinking. Next, we have the Industrial Revolution, which is the transition of human and manpower to machine. To begin with, let's understand what fueled the Age of Exploration, or basically what led to the Age of Exploration. Before, long ago, the fall of the before the fall of the Mongol Empire, there existed a trade route through land, which was the Silk Road. Europeans traded resources with both China and India. Even ideas were traded. However, after the death of the king of the Mongol Empire, Kublai Khan, the security of the trade route reduced or even became non-existent since the Mongol Empire broke up into smaller kingdoms. This led to the end of the Silk Road, or at least so far the end of the Silk Road. After this, the Europeans needed resources and they couldn't get it because the Silk Road was ended. So they changed their focus to the sea, and this resulted in the Treaty of Tordesillas, one of the first examples of age of exploration. On 7th of June 1494, the Spanish and Portuguese government signed the Treaty of Tordesillas. This was just an agreement where Spain would get most of the New World, uh, and Portugal would get the lands and control of the eastern route to the lands in the Far East. This is where the age of exploration had begun. The man on the left is Hernan Cortes. He was a Spanish conquistador. A conquistador is a person who explores and conquers lands. He sailed with his people to the Aztec Empire, which is now known as the mainland of Mexico, and got Mexico to the Spanish crown. Let's see how. He did something surprising. He commanded all his soldiers to discipline and, as a group, fight against the people there. Soon, he was the emperor of the Aztec Empire and gave the Aztec Empire to the Spanish crown. The Portuguese wanted to gain control of the lands as well, and so they sent out Vasco da Gama. He, so off he went with his people through Africa, across the southern tip of Africa, which is known as the Cape of Good Hope, between the lands of Madagascar and to the west of India. This was an important journey. His trip opened the way for soon to come Portuguese explorers and missionaries and gave India to the hand of the Portuguese. And now we have our last explorer. Who could this be? Christopher Columbus, my friends. This man is an Italian explorer and served for Spain as he sponsored his travels. His aim was to find a route to India through a western route, as the eastern route was controlled by the Portuguese by the Treaty of Tordesillas, what we looked before. So off he went with his people through the terrains, but something unexpected happened. He reached America and not India. And what was worse is that he still thought he had reached India and called the people there Indians. He had made 3 voyages to America. This began the Columbian Exchange. He colonized the lands there and began the Columbian Exchange, which also led to the slave trade from Africa. Since people were required to work in these tropical conditions, the Europeans traded African slaves, and they were forced to work in the American lands and in the new plantations. Many of these slaves were previous war soldiers from different African empires. From Europe, livestock, wheat, and diseases like smallpox would go to the New World. And from the New World, which is America, rich resources like maize, potatoes, beans, squash, pepper, and more would go to Europe. And Africa was, of course, involved, as they would be taken from there to America for working. So let's have a quick look at the Columbian Exchange. The first major point about the Columbian Exchange was that it mainly benefited the European colonizers. The lands of America had to give much of their resources for almost nothing. And the second is that America benefited through the Columbian Exchange only through one way, and that one way was because of the livestock that the Europeans gave them. The livestock greatly improved the agricultural field of America. There was no positive point, of course, for Africa, as they had to do nothing but give off all the war soldiers for slaves and to spend time in laundry or being people's maids. Let's have a look at the impacts of Age of Discovery. And thinking about Africa, the Age of Discovery had no positive impacts of Africa. Again, remembering the Columbian Exchange, it led to the Age of Imperialism, and Columbian Exchange is one example of imperialism. The Age of Imperialism was a policy. Basically, imperialism is a policy or act of extending the territory, and the purpose was mainly for resources. So just to summarize a bit of the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange was a trade of ideas and resources from Europe to America, and Africa was involved. So first we had the movement of African slaves to Europe. Next, we had European livestock, wheat, diseases, and slaves going to the colonies of America. And then we had the rich resources like vegetables and tobacco coming back from America. Another major impact of the Age of Discovery was the Berlin Conference. It was to divide the African lands between the Europeans, which is another example of imperialism. And this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching the presentation. See you next time. Have a good day.